You're listening to the Manifest Your Greatness podcast, and this is episode number 67. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking this time to join this episode of the Manifest Your Greatness podcast, where we explore practical and actionable steps that you can take to help you manifest the greatness that you already possess deep inside. And today's episode is entitled Pushing Forward when you want to pull back, pushing forward when you want to pull back. And what I mean by that is that when things get tough, and that when times when you are faced with something that is truly challenging and something that you want to avoid and something that you really don't feel like doing, it is so important to push through and push forward. And what I push forward instead of pull back, I'll give you some background on where that particular saying came from. Years ago, 20 plus years ago, I was living in New York, and I had the opportunity to see Robert Kiyosaki. You might know him as Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I had an opportunity to see him on stage at a seminar that was being held in New York City. And he talked about his time as a helicopter rescue pilot in the Marines in Vietnam. And he talked about how the average life expectancy of a rescue helicopter pilot in the Marines was extremely short. Most of them did not come back. It was a terrible situation. Many of the rescue helicopter pilots died. And he talked about how in training, one of the things that their commanding officer kept pressing into their minds was that if you take on fire and you get hit, if you're familiar with the helicopters, there's a collective, and you pull back on it to go up, and you push forward to go down. Basically, there's a lot more to it in terms of controlling a helicopter, but just at a high level. But what the commanding officer had tried to really instill into all of his pilots is that if you take on fire and you have altitude, your instinct is to want to pull back because you're going to want to hold your altitude. But he was saying that what you want to do, Robert Kiyosaki was saying what you want to do is you want to push forward and generate forward momentum and velocity until the very last moment, until right before you're about to hit the wall and then pull back, hit the water and then pull back. And that force and that velocity actually gives the helicopter an opportunity to really shave off a lot of speed at impact, and thereby can save your life. And that's exactly what happened to Robert Kiyosaki. He took enemy fire, his helicopter got hit, he pulled back, he pushed forward and did this whole maneuver. And, of course, the helicopter still crashed. It was it was a terrible situation. And then he had to get out of the helicopter and all of that. But he survived, and he survived by pushing forward. And we're not all helicopter pilots, and this isn't the Vietnam War, but what I want to say is that there are so many opportunities that we have in our lives where things are very challenging and they're very difficult, and we want to do anything but go forward. We want, this is where, we can come up with amazing excuses for ourselves, and we can come up with amazing other priorities to involve ourselves in, amazing other important things to do. All of a sudden, when we're faced with this one difficult task that we really wish we didn't have to deal with. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because I have another episode of the Manifest Your Greatness program called the difference between self-love and self-respect. Pushing forward is self-respect. Now, what this does when you start to push forward through these difficult challenges that you have, No. Do they get easier? No, they never get easier. But what starts to happen is you start building your confidence. And when you start building your confidence, you are more inclined to feel a sense of, yes, I can, when you are faced with difficult challenges that you would rather avoid. The other thing that it does is, like a muscle of any kind, right? In order to condition our muscles, we've got to work them. If you keep pushing forward when you have an opportunity to pull back, your body, your mind, your everything will start to get more in sync and start to realize, well, hell, he's going to do it anyway. I might as well prepare myself. And that is the way so many very, very successful people, and whatever they do, that's how they continue to make progress. They continue to push boundaries. They continue to make new things happen and to bring new creative ideas into the world. And this is something that we need to get really ingrained within ourselves to really make it part of who we are. And is it easy? No, it is not easy. But I'm telling you that you can recognize when this is happening. There are signs that you want to pull back instead of push forward. And what I want you to realize is that if you're aware of these signals that you're giving yourself, you can circumvent that process that is trying to get you to avoid what really needs to happen, what really needs to get done, what's really going to move the needle for you right now. So start to become more perceptive and aware of when you're starting to try to talk yourself out of things. And it could be something very simple. You could be getting ready to work on something, and you feel distracted, or all of a sudden you start thinking of other things that you really should be doing as well. But what's important is to remember what's going to move the needle the most. What is the most important thing you could be doing right now? If it's something you don't want to do it anyway. If it's something you don't feel like doing, do it anyway. If you're tired, exhausted, and you don't want to do it, and you'd rather take a nap or whatever, do it anyway and then take a nap. Okay, whatever it is, get it done, because it's the best thing for you to push forward. And sometimes it's not the most exciting thing, it's not the most glamorous thing. And a lot of times, these things that we need to do are routine processes. They are, one of my colleagues called it like Groundhog Day. If you've seen the movie Groundhog Day, and the person wakes up and he's got new skills, more and more skills every day, but the world around him isn't changing, and he has to figure out how to make meaning of it all, and to make it worthwhile. A lot of times, the things that you need to do are the mundane things that are not exciting, right? A lot of, when you go to the gym, or when you go and you do your training, or when you go and you do your research, or when you're going and putting together information and collecting information and trying to get everything together to, for a project or something like that. These are not fun things to do, right? In often cases, these are things that it's like, okay, I have to go through the motions. But if you start thinking about them as having a significant impact on where you're going, and being a necessary step to get there, and something you really need to focus on, be present, be in the here and now. I have another episode that's entitled the value. I'm paraphrasing, but the value of living in the present future. So take a listen to that, or look at that as well. But it's so important. It is so important, because what you are doing is you are building up a muscle that is in your mind, right? This is something that if you don't do it, it's always going to be, should I do it? Should I not do it? I don't know. I can think of other, you know what? I'm just going to find something else to do. Or when you have the opportunities, here's something else that you'll notice: when you start pushing through those difficult times and doing the things that you don't want to do because you know you need to do them to get to where you want to go, there's something there that you're after, and you need to put in the effort to get it. Then you will start becoming a lot more efficient with your time, because you'll start to realize that the time that you have is very, very valuable. And you need to think about balancing your health and all these other things, right? So when you start pushing forward, you start to really understand more about how your limits that you think you have, they're not where you thought they were. You can go beyond that. You can go beyond that. You can continue to push through it. And that's going to continue to build confidence. And that's going to continue to give you the strength and the self-respect, and also build that muscle, that routine that's going to make you more disciplined. And even when the motivation is not there and the energy levels are low and you're slammed with all kinds of other stuff and you feel like, okay, you know what, forget it. I was going to do it, but now I don't have the energy to do it anyway. Okay. Do it anyway. It's so important. And the more you do it, the easier it's going to become to get started. And that's what's important. The task itself, the activity itself, the mental energy or physical energy you put into it, that's always going to tax you. It's always going to be a challenge, but your mind, your body, and your rhythm, everything will get into who you are and why you are doing it. It will start to become a more natural reflex to push through when times get difficult, to push through when you don't feel like it, to push through when you think you've given all that you've got and you still haven't gotten there. So why don't I give up? You'll push through. So that's my challenge to you today. I want you to think about these situations that you find yourself in where you feel like you just can't move a step forward. Move that one step. Take that step. In the gym, take that, one more rep. That's what we always say. Life is one more rep. You got to be pushing forward, pushing forward, pushing forward. So when you find yourself in those situations and you find your mind trying to psych you out and trying to come up with all kinds of creative things that are all of a sudden so important to do, call yourself out on it. Call BS on it and move forward. Okay. That is my challenge to you. Listen to that voice and understand it, be aware of it, be perceptive of it, and then realize what it's trying to do is help you find the easy way out. You've got to take that voice and set it aside and say, look, I know you want me to be happy and I know you want me to, feel comfortable right now, but that's not what's going to benefit me the most. I know what I need to do, and get out there and do it, my friend. Thank you so much for joining this episode of the Manifest Your Greatness podcast, and I look forward to spending time with you again in an episode in the near future.